Have you ever wondered what would happen if justice itself made a mistake? Comment below, from where are you watching this story? Mark, a respected cop in the city, never imagined that one ordinary night could change everything. Thompson, a young black woman, was walking home from a late-night charity event, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. The streets were empty and silent, but tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to burst. Mark noticed a shadow moving quickly near the corner and immediately assumed it was a threat. His heart pounded as he approached, hand on his taser, ready for action. "Stop right there," he shouted, but Alicia only froze, confused and scared. Do you know how fear can make a person act without thinking? Mark's finger pressed the taser trigger and sparks flew, hitting Alicia and throwing her to the ground. Pain shot through her body as her screams echoed in the silent street. From the neighborhood rushed out to see what happened, and a murmur of shock spread across the crowd. Alicia's eyes were filled with tears as she tried to explain who she was, but Mark could barely hear her over the chaos. I'm Alicia Thompson, the governor's daughter," she cried, but the words barely registered. A chilling silence fell over the crowd, and Mark felt a knot of dread tighten in his chest. He had made a terrible mistake, and the consequences were about to explode in ways he could never imagine. If you want to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe. Officer Mark stared at Alicia on the ground, his hands trembling and his mind racing. The crowd around them was silent, but their eyes were filled with shock, anger, and confusion. Alicia's breathing was heavy, and her face was wet with tears. She tried to push herself up, but the pain made her collapse back onto the pavement. Mark suddenly realized the full weight of his mistake. He looked around and noticed whispers spreading through the crowd, and he could feel the tension rising. People started murmuring about who she was, but no one had yet confirmed it loudly. Mark's mind went blank as he remembered hearing her say, "I'm Alicia Thompson, the governor's daughter." Panic washed over him. How could he have been so blind? How could a split-second assumption ruin everything in one moment? The crowd started pulling out their phones, recording every second. Mark felt trapped, knowing that his life and career were about to change forever. Alicia looked up at him with a mix of fear, pain, and disappointment. Why did you do this?" she whispered, her voice shaking but carrying anger. Mark wanted to speak, but his words caught in his throat. The weight of racism and misunderstanding hung heavy in the night. Mark tried to apologize, but Alicia couldn't hear him over the chaos and murmurs of the crowd. He realized that this night would haunt him forever, no matter what happened next. The sirens in the distance grew louder, signaling that help was coming, but also that the situation was about to get more complicated. Officer Mark felt his chest tighten as the sound of sirens grew closer. Alicia lay on the pavement, still in pain, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The crowd around them was growing, some whispering, others filming, their phones glowing like tiny accusations in the dark. Mark could feel every heartbeat like a hammer in his chest. He had never faced a moment like this in his life. What would happen now that the governor's daughter had been hurt by his own hands? Panic turned into dread as he realized the news cameras would arrive any second. Alicia struggled to sit up, her voice shaking but firm. "Do you even know who I am?" she asked, her words cutting through the tension like a knife. Mark swallowed hard, guilt and fear mixing into a heavy fog that clouded his mind. Crowd murmured louder, some shouting accusations, others demanding answers. Mark tried to explain, but his words felt hollow. He knew that saying sorry would not fix the pain he had caused. He remembered the countless warnings he had ignored, the unconscious bias he had never considered, the assumptions that had led him here. Each second dragged, and Mark could feel his career slipping like sand through his fingers. Suddenly, someone in the crowd shouted, "Call the governor, she's his daughter." Mark froze as the reality hit him again, heavier than before. Emergency responders arrived, rushing Alicia to the ambulance, her pain and fear etched on her face. Mark was left standing, trembling, watching the girl he had hurt being taken away. The night air felt colder, heavier, filled with tension, and the realization that nothing would ever be the same sank into his soul. Mark watched helplessly as the ambulance doors closed, carrying Alicia away into the night. His hands shook and his heart raced, knowing that every second now mattered. The whispers of the crowd followed him like shadows, accusing him silently, their eyes filled with judgment. Mark had never felt so small and powerless in his life. He knew he had to face the consequences, but the thought terrified him. Alicia, the governor's daughter, was not just anyone. She represented power, influence, and now, the wrath of a society demanding justice. Mark's mind raced with questions he had no answers for. How would he explain his actions? Could he ever prove that it wasn't hate but fear and misunderstanding? Would anyone forgive him for this terrible mistake? Meanwhile, Alicia lay in the hospital, her pain mixed with anger and disappointment. She couldn't understand how someone sworn to protect citizens could act with such bias. Her father, the governor, arrived quickly after hearing the news. His eyes burned with fury and worry. He demanded answers from every officer involved, and Mark felt the full weight of accountability pressing down on him. The city media had already picked up the story, spreading the video online. Comments poured in from people in the US, UK, and around the world, each one judging, questioning, and demanding justice. Do you ever feel the power of a moment can change everything? Mark faced Alicia's father, his voice trembling as he said, I made a mistake, I am sorry. Alicia in her hospital bed looked at him, her expression a mix of pain, disappointment, and cautious understanding. Sorry won't fix this, but you must face the truth, Mark, she said softly. The weight of his actions settled like a heavy stone in his chest. He realized that this night would be remembered not only for his mistake, but for the lessons of fear, racism, and assumption that could never be erased in the following days. Investigations were launched, the public demanded accountability, and Mark faced the hardest truth of his life. He had learned, too late, that even small assumptions could have devastating consequences. Alicia slowly recovered, and her courage in facing the world became a lesson for everyone watching. If you have followed this story from the beginning, don't forget to subscribe and share, because real-life moments like this teach us about fear, mistakes, and the fight for justice. Stay with us to uncover more stories that show the truth behind the headlines and the human emotions behind every shocking event.